people would say, well, you're a master sergeant. You've been in for 15 years. Why don't you know that question? And so it gives them a safe space to kind of bounce ideas off and say, hey, I don't know the answer to this question. Could you guys help me? And I think that's the biggest power of the page, is that we are all there to support each other, regardless of rank, anything, honestly. We're there to support.
Well, welcome teammates to the new normal. I'm Kay Wright, your Chief Master Sergeant in the Air Force, and this is a web series that we use to help us all adjust to what we consider our new normal. And so for this episode, we've decided to have some of the individuals who have started some of the grassroots social media pages that's designed to help our airmen in various ways. So I'll start by introducing the folks that we have as guests with us today. And let's begin with Staff Sergeant Ian Bush, who is the founder and owner of our Air Force Wingman Outreach page. We also have Chief Master Sergeant David Satchel, the long-standing Ask a Chief Virtual Chiefs panel page. We have Senior Airman Jasmine Baker, who runs our U.S. Air Force Reserve Know and Grow page. Master Sergeant Robin Pryor, who runs the C3 Care Commit Connect, and Chief Master Sergeant Ian Eishen, who runs the Air Force Quarantine University page. So, hey, first of all, thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for the great work that you've been doing in your respective mediums. Hey, Ian Bush, we got two Ians with us today, so I'll call you by your full name. Ian Bush, let's start with you. The Air Force Wingman Outreach page started very shortly after General Goldfein and I asked our teams to do the Resilience Tactical Pause. And tell me how it got started, you know, why you did it, what have you learned so far, and how do you think it's been helping our airmen?
Thanks for the opportunity, Chief. So our page started with Zachary Miller. He was downrange, and he said that he wanted to get exactly what you were saying, sir, grassroots into the social media platform to really help people at every level. And so he started this Facebook group, and he's even admitted at plenty of times that he didn't know if this page was going to make it. There was a time period where people weren't joining, people weren't talking, and he's like, I'm just going to get rid of it. And luckily he didn't, because then the other founders came in and surged the support. And you know how that works, Chief. 5 people add 5 people, who adds 5 people, and now we're up to 38,000 people.
Yeah, I tell you, man, it's probably one of the most powerful things that I've seen, especially in response to that, the resilience issue that we were having last year. I actually talk about it quite often. Just about every audience I get an opportunity to address, you know, I talk about this page. So how has the page changed since you started?
I think the page has changed in the aspects that we are trying to gather more data on some of the big topics that are discussed. And so if there's an issue that we see, we kind of come into the group and say, you know, what could we do different? How could we address that issue? And we have an anonymous Gmail that people can send an email to, and we'll post it on their behalf. And I think that's the first time that somebody has felt comfortable enough to send something to us to post on their behalf so they can ask whatever they want. And that's where we get the biggest impact, is that people can ask whatever they want within social, you know, acceptable means, but they can ask something that typically people would say, well, you're a master sergeant, you've been in for 15 years, why don't you know that question? And so it gives them a safe space to kind of bounce ideas off and say, hey, I don't know the answer to this question, could you guys help me? And I think that's the biggest power of the page, is that we are all there to support each other, regardless of rank, anything, honestly. We're there to support.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the support. I love the sense of community that we have, that so many people are helping each other. Let's go to Chief Eishen, Ian Eishen. Tell me about Air Force Quarantine University and how that came about and what you guys are up to these days.
No, thanks, Chief. Again, thanks for the opportunity to do this. This has been, we're probably the newest page on this entire thing. This page is 3.5 weeks old or so. And I think it was just the right place, the right time. So we had just come back from a Silicon Valley kind of startup conference where everybody was talking about scaling a business and starting a business and, how do you know when the time is right? And so we had a team of people, myself, my exec, Master Sergeant Chad Hardesty, and then one of our ALS instructors, Tech Sergeant Fabian Guzman. We're kind of sitting around the DFAC trying to figure things out and figuring out how do we continue ALS with quarantine happening and how do we get these airmen that professional development that they need. And then we kind of realized we should start something quickly for our unit. However, we could scale it to thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. There was no extra work. If we talk on here right now, all of us together, it takes us 45 minutes or an hour. And whether one person watches it or 10,000 watch it, it doesn't change the amount of work that we have to do. And so we started it up with the hopes that we would at least take care of our base, and then a few people would probably jump on, and then it quickly spread. So if we would have done it 6 weeks earlier, or even 2 weeks earlier, it probably wouldn't have had the same impact, just because we didn't have as many airmen at home looking for that type of development. But I think the best part is we really just gave them a place to be, give a place to the people who want development to be, and the people who want to develop people to be. And a lot of the time, those are the same people. And so it grew quickly out of that.
Yeah. So, hey, Ian, do you have a push or a pull system? So are you reaching out to people, asking them to speak, or people knocking down the door, wanting to do presentations for you? Because I've seen a variety of folks that have been doing stuff on your page.
It's a little bit of both, Chief. We started with push because no one knew that it existed. And then quickly when you go on live, that's one of the nicer things about Facebook Live and some of the live mediums. You see people jumping on that, weren't even tracking the page through their friends list. And so it started with pushing. We still ask certain people if we think that, hey, there's a lot of talk about a certain subject and we don't have that subject matter expertise, we'd like to bring in as many people as possible. But then we don't close it off to anybody. People like doing it and they've had fun. And so usually after people do one, they start signing up for weeks and weeks in advance. And so we have a pretty good system, I think, set up. So there's one website they go to, they log in, or they don't even have to log in. They just sign up for a course and then we set it all up for them. So as more people do it, the reputation grows and then we get more involved. So still a little bit of both. But again, if anybody on here, if you guys want to jump on, we'd be more than happy to have you.
Yeah, I think that'll be great. Okay, so let's move to, thanks again, Ian. Let's move to Jasmine. Tell me about U.S. Air Force Reserve Know and Grow. How did this come about? Why'd you start this page, and how do you think it's been going?
Sure. Thanks so much for having me on, Chief. So U.S. AFR Know and Grow is a page uniquely dedicated to reservists and their specific, I'll say not really challenge, but just their specific situation and, their place in the total Air Force. And it was started back in 2019. We're a 4-person team. It was started by Senior Master Sergeant Jamie Freeman and a Senior Master Sergeant Corey Conaway. And they really wanted a way to connect with reservists and educate them on our component, as well as help them to grow professionally and personally and provide leadership development tools for them. And so that's really what our content is dedicated to. It's for reservists, about reservists, by reservists. And we do also a lot of highlighting reservists and their accomplishments as military members, as well as civilian in their civilian careers.
All right. Yeah, thanks. Of course, Jamie is one of our teammates, and so she's pretty passionate, I know for a fact, about development for everybody. But I love to see that there's this specific focus on some of our reserve airmen. So thanks again, Jasmine, and good luck. I think, are we still waiting to hear about your commissioning? I hate to put your stuff out there, but.
No, I am waiting to hear. I mean, I know that I will be commissioning. My OTS dates have not been finalized yet, but hopefully soon. With all that's going on right now, I think that date's definitely gotten pushed back. But
okay,
whenever it happens, I'm excited. I'm ready.
Yeah. Congratulations again, and thanks for taking care of us.
Absolutely.
All right, Robin, Care Commit Connect C3. How long have you had this page, and what is it specifically designed to do?
Good morning, Chief. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
we
no
launched
problem.
the page in November of last year, and the page is designed to bring women together, women within the military, connect them with each other, as well as connect them with women outside of the military who want to connect with other women, form friendships, and empower and uplift one another. It was inspired by Let's Connect, KMC Let's Connect, when I was at Ramstein.
Yeah.
Yes, and when I moved here to the US, to Lackland, I couldn't find any groups that geared toward connecting women with each other. And with every move, we all have to start over essentially and find a new community and form new friends. And while we do have those colleagues, I didn't have as many women that I worked with as I'm used to. I'm a flight attendant, so it's predominantly women. And I come into a tech training environment, and a good friend of mine is in cybersecurity, and there aren't many women. And I personally thrive on the sisterhood and connection with other women, and I just wanted to bring that here. I looked at civilian companies. There's a lot in San Antonio that do the same thing, that want to bring success-driven women together, provide opportunities for them to flourish. But I wanted to connect with women within the military and discuss concerns that are unique to us, such as deployments, nursing while flying, shift work, and various other concerns that my civilian friends don't understand.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I was in Ramstein, and I used to watch Joe Bass and the whole team of Rebecca Arbona and that whole team of folks with Let's Connect. My wife Tanya and Phil Easton's wife Yolanda. They were really passionate and very, very organized, very structured. So it was really good for helping young ladies in that environment find role models. So thanks for continuing to do that here in the U.S. Yeah. Satch, the old dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Ask a Chief has been around for a while. What's been the goal here, and has it changed, and where do you see your page going forward?
Good afternoon, Chief. Thanks for having me here. I really appreciate that. The most important thing you should know is very simple. It's Ask a Chief, and it's because people didn't have a lot of access to some chiefs or with different opinions and understandings, and so they had now an opportunity to have direct access to some chiefs that are subject matter experts. I jumped on in about a year after it was founded by a senior master sergeant. Her name is Linda Poe. She asked an old friend and mentor of mine, Mike Bobbitt, would he sponsor that for her? And then I want to say 9 or so months after that, Mike asked me to jump on, and I was happy to do that. It kind of really helped me just be able to just speak openly about the things that I knew. But the direction of the page is stayed pretty much the same. And we are in the background kind of holding the line, making sure we stay within the institution's opinions about things. So we allow people to express their personality with regards to certain topics, but we didn't want them to go too far left or right, so that the airmen would get a unvarnished truth, and along with some an opinion about subject matter and whatever that is. We really try to keep grenades from landing in the room. And so that happens often, and much like Ian Bush, we have the ability to have someone ask a question in a queue, and then we get to take a look at it, and then we have a small group of our management team that looks at the question, especially if it's kind of, it may cause, a black eye for even that member. We want to just discuss that, what are our thoughts about it, and then maybe we'll address it one-on-one with the individual, or we'll be ready just to push it onto the page. But we stayed pretty much the same since we've begun, and so it's been pretty successful, and I didn't see it going that way for this long.
Yeah. So you talked about dropping grenades. I imagine that's a challenge for each of you with running a social media site that's basically open. I know, Robin, yours is specifically for women, and Jasmine, yours is designed for reservists, but it's really maybe open to most folks. What are some of the other challenges besides folks dropping grenades, inappropriate comments? I imagine sometimes you might get Russian trolls or what have you. What are some of the other challenges of managing a page like this? We'll start with you, Ian Bush.
Thanks, Chief. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is, unfortunately, just being kind to our members. I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier about how people will look at somebody and say, you've been in for 15 years. Why don't you know that answer to that question? Or you've done this. You've never deployed. Oh, my goodness. Why haven't you deployed? And I think it's really hard to make that culture where we all understand each other just a little bit more. But I think not only AFWO, Air Force Women Outreach, but the other groups as well, we're getting to this place where we can all come together, and it doesn't matter what rank you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, that we can have a safe space to discuss these hard issues. Because that's the only way that we're going to change our Air Force little by little, is having safe spaces for us to discuss the hard issues and get better results for our airmen.
Yeah, I've personally seen, I don't know if it's you or your team, I've seen you and I've seen Sachin and his team check people for stuff like that. So holding all of us accountable is really important part and helps with that particular challenge. Robin, what about you? Challenges.
The challenges, to be honest, is I'm not the most technologically savvy person, if you haven't noticed. But it's been the time. I don't have a very active presence personally on social media. I keep my page locked down. I don't share too many pictures. And I very much, I respect and my safe space, my personal space and my personal details are very sacred to me. And so in creating a page geared toward trying to create a community with women, I've had to open up and share more of myself, and with women, that's fine. But we do have both a public and a private page for C3. Private because we want to be able to discuss women specifically, to discuss their concerns in a safer space. We have, just like Wingman Outreach, an email where people can submit questions privately and we can post it anonymously on our page if they didn't want to ask that. We're young, we're new, we don't have as many followers or members as all of you, actually. I think we have the fewest, but we haven't had to go there yet, but we want to provide that opportunity. And then on the public page, we've branched out, not just trying to help women and create that community of women supporting women, but in this time during COVID-19 and they have a new normal, they're working from home and they're social distancing, and we want to be able to reach out to more people. And so our public page is geared toward professional development and outreach with iLead Academy, which is where I met Chief Satchel for the first time the other day. But we're trying to connect with as many people, care for as many people as we can.
Yeah, well, you'll probably get a few more followers after we post this today. Ian Eisen, tell me about, I know you're very, very innovative and tech savvy. Any particular challenges that you might find with running your page and being a full-time command chief for the 512 Test Wing?
It's the 412 Test Wing.
The 412 Test Wing. I'm sorry.
All right, I'd get in trouble if I didn't correct that one.
Yeah.
No, I think the biggest challenge we have is content organization. We're still new, so right now there's just tons of stuff flooding in. And so how do we get it set up so that somebody who shows up in 3 weeks or 2 months from now, when we have, because right now I think we're producing about 8 hours of content a day, they have access to that content, they can find it, they can get it organized, and they can actually get a path rather than just a mess. The other thing is, I think Quarantine University works really well right now. But now that we have all these people who want to learn and people who want to teach in the same place, how do we pivot that in 3 weeks or in 6 months? Or, does Quarantine University become the social media outlet for Air University or Digital University or some of the other things that the Air Force is trying to do? And so trying to figure out how do you make this last and take advantage of the momentum that's happened because of the quarantine in the future. But that's fun brainstorming. The team's having a great time trying to figure that out. And we've got a lot of smart people on the page that will help us with it. So definitely challenges, but they're all a blast to go through.
Yeah, thanks. I want to come back to that. Remind me to come back to what does the future hold? After all of this is over, will you continue to do that type of stuff? Jasmine, over to you. Challenges of running a page like this.
Sure. So I think one challenge right now is that we want to expand our platform so that we are reaching as many airmen as possible. We really specifically want to reach younger airmen and meet them where they are. So we've expanded to Instagram, and that's my specific contribution to the team right now, is running the Instagram page. And so that's still growing, and we really want to provide content that resonates with younger airmen, anybody of any rank. And so that's one piece. And I think also another challenge for us is that we really want this page to be valuable, not just to reservists, but to, all components in the Air Force, active duty and guardsmen, so that we can promote, total force integration, and they realize, what the reserves has to offer to them as well.
Yeah, good. Satch?
So, for numbers' sake, I think I'm perfectly okay with people not coming to the page. And so that's just a different appearance, different look at it. But we're there as a resource, and I'm hoping that people, lean towards their supervision and their chain of command, and they feel confident in that. And then I think that we've done something good. And quite often, just like some of you all would say, is, man, why didn't they know that? Why didn't they feel comfortable enough, talking to their supervisor? So it's a major concern of mine that I express to the team often, is we just don't want to usurp authority by trying to fix a problem that a supervisor or a chain of command has the sole responsibility for. And so we do have large numbers, but I'm okay with the low amount of traffic, because that means things are getting solved, or at least I can assume things are being solved in their organizations.
Yeah.
But the other challenge that we have is context. People throw questions out there that, or scenarios out there that, and context matters. And when people are trying to answer them, there's just too much unknown. And so it could really run out of control with responses when the context is not there.
Yeah, that makes sense. So one of the reasons that Harry and I started this platform is because of, folks being not necessarily quarantined, but isolated, teleworking, work from home, spending more time with family. This really is a new normal for a lot of us. Tell me, how are you guys handling working from home, still having somewhat of a full-time job, family? Some of you may be homeschooling children and trying to maintain your own kind of well-being from a physical, mental, spiritual, and a social standpoint. Like, how do you do it? Ian Eisen, let's start with you.
This kind of gets misconstrued sometimes, but I can tell you I'm having a blast. Not with COVID itself, but because of the emergency nature of the pandemic, it's removed a lot of the lower priority things that, might fill up your time. Staff meetings that may have been 2 hours and drawn out, we just don't have time for that. And so we focus on the important things, and then we move on to the next. If there's a problem I'm working as a command chief, it's an important problem. And so it has removed a lot of that while still allowing me the flexibility. Yesterday, taking care of meetings, teleworking some, in the office plenty, still got to, make some dinner with the kids. So cooking more with the kids, hanging out with the kids more, because the meetings are done a little bit more virtually. And so it has opened up a lot of opportunities for people, especially leaders across the base, to thrive. And so it's been really cool seeing what leaders have been able to step up and do new things, and help solve problems, because they weren't operating in the normal. They weren't operating on a standard checklist. And so we've seen some leaders who may not have been noticed as much, or maybe operating in the shadows, just step out because this was their environment. And so that's been really cool to see. But yeah, it's a really good time to represent a base and to support a base. And we get to help out these communities. I'm hanging out with the retirement community way more than I would have been able to before, because of all the situations. So yeah, I don't know. We're doing it day by day. I have no idea what I'm doing tomorrow, but I can tell you it'll be important and it'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks again, man. Robin, how are you handling all this?
I'm just taking it day by day, Chief. I've definitely had to be deliberate about my boundaries, because if I let it, it can be all consuming. In AETC, we're still teaching, so we still have students coming in, and I'm a tech training instructor. So flexibility, we don't have students this week to be able to work from home and take care of things at home and do that, but it can be challenging at times to balance all of that with work and family and passion. With C3, it's definitely, because it's expanding, it's taking up a lot more time and creating content and media and designing flyers and things of that nature. I'm not very tech savvy, so it takes me a little longer to learn things and processes, and I want things to look good before we post it. And then with work, not allowing myself to continue to be on VPN past a certain amount of time, and then still spending that time and homeschooling. I have 2 young daughters, and going outside and running while they're riding their bike so that I also get my physical fitness in. And so just being creative in how I manage my time, that's what's been different with this. It hasn't been challenging, it has been fun. I love the connection with C3. We're hosting happy hours where we get together through Zoom and talk and connect. And luckily it's not just women in San Antonio, it's women from all over the US that are actually able to tune in and participate with us. And right after this, later this afternoon, I do have a FaceTime chat with a group of my girlfriends. So I love it. I'm loving it. The connection with everybody.
Yeah, nice. Satch, you're in a bit of a unique situation. So you're on the cusp of retiring from the Air Force and transitioning and starting a new life. How are you keeping it all together, man?
So I've learned over all these years of running this page, you know, I got 7 days left, by the way, and that not all these questions are not emergencies. They're rare that they are emergencies. There has been a time, maybe just prior to the Air Force Wingman Outreach, where we would get a question that would make my hair stand up, where I would want to get up and solve it or to find a solution. But now they may sit in queue for 24 hours or more until we've been able to think through questions that go on there. So I would stay up late, but I don't sleep that much anyway. So I had a lot of time, and my wife sleeps so early. So of course there was time to be able to do this. And so it's not that hard, but I did have to find a way to just put it down and say, okay, this is not an emergency. We'll deal with that, in the morning, or another person that's on the team would look at it.
Okay, cool. Ian Bush.
Chief, a lot of good takeaways from all of this, from everybody for sure. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is that I am trying to be more understanding and help others be more understanding during this time. It's already been alluded to that, hey, some of the lower hanging fruit we don't do anymore. We're all more focused on the higher priority items. We are getting back to mission. What is the mission? What are we doing? And I think the other thing that gives me a lot of comfort during this time is that we are taking lessons learned from this time period to apply not only in our professional, but our personal lives as well. I know for me personally, I actually read a book for the first time in a long time in a month. And I used to be an avid reader. And so that's a lesson learned for me, is that, maybe I should take more time to go read. Mm-hmm. And so that brings a lot of comfort to me. I know it brings a lot of comfort to other people, because we're doing more with less people, even more less than what we had to begin with before this started. Mm-hmm. And it's comforting to know that what we do now and how we operate now will change how we do anything in our personal or professional lives after this is over.
Yeah. Thanks, Ian. Jasmine, how are you holding it together?
I'm doing pretty well. So I will say I'm actually not teleworking. I am going into the office still. Okay. I am on full-time orders right now at the Defense Intelligence Agency, and I'm supporting a COVID-19 task force. So I'm going in every day, working normal hours. And then also I was, when all of this started, I was at ALS, and so in Texas actually. So I had to, come back really quickly. So that was kind of a shock to come back and have everything shut down. So that has been strange to have my family and my friends teleworking, but I'm still going into work. But I think just, like you said, embracing the new normal and really embracing virtual connection has been really great. Taught me and my siblings taught my grandparents and my parents how to use Zoom. And so we've been able to all connect that way. We actually did a virtual birthday party for my grandfather last week. He turned 83. So that was amazing to see all of us come together and do something like that. And so just things like that. And also I feel like since being on quarantine, it's pushed me to want to go outside more and embrace nature and take walks more often. So that's been a really nice opportunity as well. So I feel like I'm actually getting putting more stock into outside and nature more than usual. So that's been nice.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, we're gonna start to wrap up here, but I'd love it if each one of you guys. So the likely audience, since I have all of you on, will be a combination of all of your audiences and the audience who follows the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, my page and stuff. And I was wondering if you wouldn't mind, just for all of the folks who are, struggling with this COVID-19, who are trying to manage the challenges of being a parent, being a homeschool, being a teacher, the couples and partners who are, trying to adjust to the new normal of being together, 24/7 and all of that. If you would just take a second and what message would you give to, our force on how to best deal with what's happening right now?
Okay, I'll jump in. You recommended a book, Essentialism, and so the art of doing less, and the theme that you saw just through this conversation. A lot of us are finding that we can prioritize what we're supposed to be doing and toss out all these other things that are just not important. And so here's an opportunity through this mess here that we can focus on what's important. And of course, that's family. And if we didn't have any opportunities to focus on it, here's our time, and so, and if you had an opportunity to read a book kind of like Ian Bush just mentioned, here's your opportunity, take full advantage. They don't always come this way. And so I would go back and reprioritize my life and put the things that belong, number 1, 2, and 3, back in their rightful place. And then start focusing on those and maturing those relationships that have kind of waned. And so, so I know this is tough sometimes, but here's your opportunity to capitalize on a bad situation and make it work for you. So good luck to you all.
Thanks, Satch. Ian Bush.
Chief, I would say that the 2 biggest items that people need to do right now is ask the hard questions and just keep talking. If you're struggling, you need to speak up. There are people here, especially all across this page, Total Force, that are here to help you get through this. You are not alone. We are here. There are people who want to help. And so that's the biggest thing that I can take away from all of this, is that we are in this together, be it virtually or physically. And it doesn't matter what rank you are, what status you are, we're in this together and we'll come out of it.
Wow, great message. Thanks, Ian. Jasmine.
Yeah, so my advice would be to take this, time. We've all, been forced to slow down. So take this time to personally reflect, and then also use this extra space to learn a new skill, learn something new. I've had a goal recently to start learning photography and using my camera more often and how to use it better. So now that I'm not going out on the weekends, I've had more time to sit down and actually, watch some YouTube tutorials and things like that. And I found really fulfilled by that. So if there's something that you've been meaning to do, but you just haven't found the time for, I feel like now's the time to, embrace that.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Jasmine. Robin.
To piggyback off of what Jasmine was saying with the reflection and doing some introspection and really prioritizing what's important. And often we're consumed with all of these outside factors, and with us sitting at home or us working and not having to attend the unnecessary meetings or them being cut short, we are realizing what's important and what can't be put off to a later date. And so personally prioritizing that and cultivating relationships. We have the time to have Zoom calls, to call people on FaceTime. Many people are at home, and so this is the time to pick up the phone, or instead of just text somebody, pick up the phone and call them, or actually have a video chat with them so that you can have that face-to-face interaction and really cultivate and build those relationships with people that are important to you. And then lastly, take it one day at a time. I was talking to a friend, and she has anxiety about when all of this will end. And when you think about it, we don't know. We're not certain what the future will hold exactly, but just focusing on today, maybe tomorrow, what you can do, what skill you can learn, who you can reach out to, and who you can connect with, those things you can control. So prioritize, cultivate relationships, and take it one day at a time.
Yeah, outstanding. Great message, Robin.
Yeah.
And Ian Aishin, close us out, my friend.
Man, that's a lot of pressure. The biggest advice I've been trying to give people is none of us are good at this. None of us woke up and had a plan and were ready to go and knew exactly what COVID world is going to look like or what COVID tomorrow is going to look like. So from the very beginning, do not beat yourself up for messing up. There are things that I have messed up on every single week and sometimes every single day. And so we need to be ready for kind of that atmosphere of experiential learning. We need to allow ourselves to fail. We need to allow our airmen and our unit and our leaders and just people around us to fail. As long as everybody did it for the right reasons and they learn from it and they come back and try to do better tomorrow, that's all we can ask. We're not experts. Even when we're done, we're not going to be experts at this. We're just going to have some experience doing this. And we'll use that as we move forward. So don't beat yourself up. Don't get upset because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or you didn't do what you wanted to do today. Again, the people have said it here. Take it one day at a time. The community as a whole, the community will succeed. The base is going to succeed. The Air Force is going to succeed. Your team is going to succeed, even if you might have an individual failure that day. And so rely on each other. And then don't just assume that things are getting done or people are all right. A lot of the issues and drama and things that people were dealing with pre-COVID, they didn't just disappear because you're not seeing that airman. And so it's really rough when you can't see them face to face and go, you know what, you're talking a little different today. You look a little bit different. What's going on? And so we have to be radically intrusive. We have to be radically transparent. We have to be talking and working a lot. Hopefully we keep using things like this. Regardless of what medium, but just to make sure that we are talking to each other so we do catch that person on that day where they really do need help and they really don't have a place to turn to. So again, it's a great opportunity for you to learn some things as a leader and as a follower and just as a person. So please take advantage of it.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Hey, many people often ask me, how stressful, if my job is stressful. And I tell you, it's a little stressful in some ways, being responsible for all of the enlisted airmen across our Air Force. But it's people like you guys that cause me not to have to worry. Because of the things that you guys are doing across the entire United States Air Force, I really, really feel confident in the fact that our airmen have multiple resources that they can turn to. They have folks like the 5 of you who actually care about them and their well-being, and that's trying to make life better. And so again, man, I just really, really want to say thank you for the great work that you guys been doing. Like I said, I get an opportunity to watch each of you from afar and admire and appreciate the great stuff that you're doing. So keep it up. We'll maybe come back later and talk about what happens after COVID, and maybe even more importantly, what happens after you guys transition, right? So Satch is retiring. At some point, you guys will move on to different things, and I'm almost certain, just knowing each of you, that you have a crew of people that you'll be able to hand off your respective platforms and projects to. But because I think that's something that's important. This is something that our Air Force has needed for a long time, and you guys are filling a very important space. So again, thank you very much. So teammates, this has been your new normal. I'm Kay Wright, and just again want to thank all of our guests, Chief Satchel from the Ask a Chief Virtual Chiefs Panel, Senior Airman Jasmine Baker from the USAFR Know and Grow, Staff Sergeant Ian Bush from our Air Force Wingman Outreach, Master Sergeant Robin Pryor from C3, and Chief Master Sergeant Ian Aishin from Quarantine University and the 412th Test Wing. So thanks for that, Ian. So I appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your time, and we'll be seeing you guys soon. Signing off here. this next episode is a few of our